One thing I have learned is that fear is one of the things that is going to hold you back the most in life. And I'm like screaming from the rooftops, but I don't like it. Doesn't matter. You started, you have to finish. You're watching me evolve into a different person. What you don't realize is that I'm coming back to who I've always been. And in a weird way, like when I birthed my daughter, I really feel like I rebirthed myself. I want to raise her differently. I want to raise her the way that I wish that I was raised.
This makes me want to have another baby.
Thank you. I truly think that if anyone can disrupt this entire category, it's me.
Welcome to It Mom, a podcast where it is all about you. And I'm your host, Paulina Perry, and today I'm joined by Niki Sky for a very exciting conversation. I personally have been waiting for this conversation for a while because you've been an integral part of my motherhood story. So I want to kind of preface everything with how I discovered you about 6 years ago. I was going through a tough time. I lost my very first pregnancy, and it was during COVID. And I remember I came across one of your YouTube videos where you were sharing so openly and so vulnerably about your experience at the time. And I really felt like I was not alone. So first of all, I want to thank you for that. But also I want to start this conversation with you by diving into that time and talking a little bit more about that version of Niki and what you were going through. So maybe tell us more about that.
I'm so humbled that, you shared this story with me and that you connected with me at that moment in my life, and that it helped you. That's really the main reason why I filmed that video. Yes, I was going through a hard time, but I knew that one of the main ways for me to heal from that journey was to share my experience and to help other women feel like they're less alone. So thank you for sharing that with me, and I'm really happy that it helped you. The Niki before that was a very different Niki. I grew up in a Slavic household, very well. You have certain expectations, certain demands, and for me personally, I was raised, my parents did, the best job they could, obviously, but they had certain expectations of me. I had to go get good grades, go to school, be a good girl, get married, have kids, and everything had to happen in a specific order. If I rebelled, which naturally I am different, and I've learned to accept that and love that about myself now, but I used to suppress it a lot, and I used to wear a mask a lot, and I used to pretend to be someone that I was not so that I would be loved and accepted. So throughout my entire life, I felt like I was fighting who I really was on the inside, and I always felt very disconnected from myself. And the older I became, the more disconnected I would feel. And it got to a point where I was so disconnected that I lost myself. And when it came time for my husband and I to start trying for a family, I just felt like, why is it not working? Everything was supposed to happen in this order of sequence, and I did everything correctly the way that my parents wanted me to, but this is not working. And I felt like such a failure. At first we got pregnant right away, and everything seemed positive and going down the trajectory that it was supposed to go down. Mm-hmm. And then when I had that first ultrasound, finding out that there was no heartbeat, it broke me. It really did, because in my mind I thought, you hear about miscarriages, you hear about pregnancy loss, but you never really fully believe that it could happen to you until it does. And when it does, and you're not prepared for it, it shatters you into a million pieces. And no one knew that I was going through it, aside from my husband. We didn't even tell our parents that we were pregnant. We didn't tell anyone that we were pregnant. So I was silently going through this without, anyone knowing, anyone helping me, guiding me, telling me what to do. And it was very lonely. It was a very hard experience. And when ultimately I lost the pregnancy, I feel like something inside of me shifted. And I wanted to be a mother more than anything in the world before. But then after the pregnancy loss, I wanted it for a completely different reason. In a weird way, I felt like this is something that I needed to do to find myself again. And in the moment, it's really hard to explain. But when you go through a miscarriage, a lot of people talk about miscarriages and pregnancy loss, and I feel like a lot of people don't really understand what that means. And it also depends at what point in the pregnancy you are. But at the point where I was in the pregnancy, like, it was traumatizing because you feel and you see an organism that you grew in your body come out of you, and it's like you see life just fade away before your eyes. And no matter how much you try to explain to your husband, to your parents, to your best friend, no one will understand unless they've actually been through it. And I feel like for me, something just like switched in my head and made me realize how fragile and how precious life really is. And I wanted to become a mother for a greater purpose, to achieve this potential inside of me that I knew I had. I knew that I could be an exceptional mother, and that's kind of what propelled me to keep going. So that video that I filmed in my car, I was actually debating for a long time whether to or not to film that video. I don't know if you know this, but so I had my Fancy Hair channel where I created videos about my hair extension business, which I ended up selling. And then I started the Niki Sky channel as a way to distract myself from the pain that I was going through the pregnancy losses and the miscarriages. It was kind of like, again, wearing a mask, putting on a mask on, like distracting myself from the pain and the suffering that I was actually going through. And I kept up the performance for as long as I could while I was going through IVF and multiple pregnancy losses. And my husband and I were just like going through this roller coaster ride together for about 2 years until finally I broke, and I was like at my lowest point mentally, physically, emotionally, and I just had enough. And I got in my car, I filmed that video. I filmed that video before like I became a mom, and the intention was just to vent, because up until that point, I haven't really told anyone what I've been going through. And it was my way of releasing everything that has been burdening me for so many years. Because I've been taught, be a good girl, don't complain, don't cry. Like, you have to be strong and like, brush everything under the rug. So it was a very cathartic experience for me, and I feel like it really helped me heal, because I felt so much lighter after filming that. And I still didn't post it. I did it for myself. And what happened was 2 months after that, I spontaneously conceived my daughter naturally, without any IVF, without hormones or anything, even though my fertility doctor at that point said, if you do get pregnant naturally, you have to come back to the clinic and get progesterone shots. Otherwise, you won't be able to carry the pregnancy to term. And I said, absolutely not. I'm not doing that. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. If not, that's just the universe telling me that it's not time. So I trusted the process, and thank God everything worked out. I carried to term, and it gave birth to my beautiful rainbow baby. That's when I decided, you know what? There is light at the end of the tunnel. When I filmed that video, I thought that that's it. Like, it's just not going to happen for me. And I realized that there's so many other women and families that are going through the same thing, thinking the same thing. And I thought, you know what, if I can show them, like, this is where I was and this is where I ended up, maybe it's going to make people believe again and not depend on the medical system for all of the answers, because sometimes they don't have all of the answers. You have to trust yourself, listen to your intuition, and be your own advocate. And yeah, that video, like, till this day, I get DMs all the time from women saying how much that video helped them, and they resonated with it and connected with it. And that was the beginning of my journey of finding myself again. And in a weird way, like when I birthed my daughter, I really feel like I rebirthed myself.
Yeah, you meet yourself a lot of times for the first time for motherhood experience. That's what I hear from mothers, and we're definitely going to dive a lot more into it. But I want to unpack a few things that you mentioned, because I really appreciate you talking about how people around us, they don't always recognize, pregnancy loss, especially in the early days, as something really traumatic. For us, it's not just pregnancy. It's a baby. Like, that's how you see it from the very first moment when you discover that you're pregnant.
Yeah.
You're not thinking, I'm pregnant. You're thinking, I have a baby.
This is life.
Right? So people around you, they're like, pregnancy, 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 as if it's something that, lacks life.
Substance,
right? It's just like this diagnosis.
Yeah.
But for a woman who carries the pregnancy, it's a baby, and it's a hope for a whole new life, for a whole new chapter. So we're not only grieving a loss of a baby, but we're also grieving the whole future that we might have created in our head about the family. And it inevitably happens. Even, after experiencing a loss myself, I remember when I got pregnant with my daughter, I didn't tell my husband for like 10 weeks. I had morning sickness. I started being picky about food, and that's when he noticed. He's like, "You're weird." And I was scared to dream about having that baby, because I was so worried that it might happen to me again.
Yeah.
So it's definitely quite a traumatic experience, and I admire women that are brave enough to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we feel alone because nobody else really talks about it. So thank you for sharing it. I want to dive deeper into the whole identity shift, because as you beautifully mentioned, that I rebirthed myself as I birthed my firstborn. I think a lot of women will be able to resonate with that, because I see so many shifts in women after they have kids. And obviously I'm experiencing it myself.
Yeah.
And I would say, as an observer of you as a creator, like, I don't know you personally, but as a creator, I saw you evolve and things change. And one of the things that I found very interesting is I felt that you had this sense of closeness with Ari, your daughter, and you really wanted to create this special connection with her, like through your content, even without knowing you in person. That's how I felt you were. So I want to dive into that and see whether, I'm correct or.
Wow. I'm very surprised that you made that determination based on my content, because I think that I post maybe like 1% of my life with my children on social media. So that means a lot to me that you recognize that. I have a very special connection and bond with each of my kids in very different ways. With Ariella, obviously she was my firstborn, and like, she's the baby that made me a mom for the first time. And I see a lot of myself in her in so many different ways. Like, now that she's at that age where she's developing her own character and her personality and her preferences and everything, she's very autonomy driven. She's very independent. Very creative. But I feel like, again, I know my parents did the best they could at the time with the knowledge and the resources that they had. But I want to raise her differently. I want to raise her the way that I wish that I was raised. And I want to be her support and her coach through life. And whatever she needs from me, I want to be able to give her the tools and the guidance to help her thrive and achieve her greatest potential in life, whatever that is. And again, every child is different. They're going to need different tools and guidance, and you need to know as a parent how to adapt. But yeah, she's inspired me in so many ways to be a better human, to be a better mother, to be a better everything in life. And I'm constantly learning from her every day, and she challenges me in so many ways. And I'm just like so grateful to her and for this experience. And yeah.
Do you feel like you had to reparent yourself in a way?
Oh yeah.
So give me
Yes.
examples.
Okay. When you become a parent, I feel like your children, they mirror the things in yourself that you didn't recognize to be problems until after. And if you're self-aware enough to make those realizations, you're going to catch yourself. You're going to be like, oh, I don't like that quality in myself. And you're going to want to change. Before becoming a mom, I admittedly know that I was a lot more reactive. I would get triggered a lot easier about certain things. I would say a lot, like not as calm as I am now. I was not as secure. Like I had a lot of childhood traumas that I needed to heal from that I didn't even realize until after I became a mom. So with Ariella, I started to see all of these things in myself through her mirroring me. And thankfully, I have the self-awareness to realize that, to make the changes. It's definitely been a journey. And it's funny because I read this quote recently. It's a beautiful quote, but basically the point of it was that when you become a parent, you are a different parent with every child. Like every child gets to see a different version of you. And with my son, with my daughter, when I got pregnant with her, I was very anxious because I feel like when you experience pregnancy loss, you can probably attest to this. That trauma doesn't leave you. That anxiety doesn't leave you. Like from the day I got pregnant to the day I gave birth to her, I was so nervous. And that's one of the main reasons why I only shared that I was pregnant with both of my children at around 5 months pregnant, because I was just so protective and so nervous of how it was going to go. But with my son, I was more calm, but I was still very cautious because of what I went through. But when I gave birth to him, he experienced a totally different version of me because I did a lot of healing with myself with my first. And I was definitely a lot more calm, more confident. I feel like, I knew what to do, how to navigate motherhood in a different way.
And also, he's a different child, right? I think it's Gabor Mate who came up with that concept that you're a different parent.
Maybe.
For a different child.
Yeah.
And I agree with that absolutely, because even thinking about my own children, you go through evolution, and it's kind of on steroids once you have your firstborn. And then by the time you have your second, third, fourth, whatever, you're a completely different person.
Yeah.
So I want to take a little step back and kind of talk about reality versus expectations. We already touched on having some anxiety and fear due to the loss and the whole journey that led up to having your daughter. But tell me more about the reality versus expectation. Did you have any particular challenges at that point once you had your daughter compared to what you envisioned it to be? And if yes, then what were they and how you dealt with them?
I feel like this question is a little bit more complicated for me and other parents who had babies around 2019, 2020. Obviously, my expectation was to, have this community of family and friends and women who I can, lean on, and we can all help each other and support each other through this beautiful journey. But that wasn't the case for me because when Ariella was about 5.5 months old, the world, had a shut down. We were dealing with COVID, and it was a very uncertain time. And obviously, as new parents, and with everything that we went through leading up to having our firstborn, both my husband and I, our anxiety was through the roof. So we were forced into isolation. I couldn't see my family or my friends or anyone for a long time until we kind of knew what Corona was and the potential that it had to, to impact us. It was a very lonely, very isolating journey. But at the same time, I feel like she gave me strength to get through it. But I felt like I was just learning everything on my own. It was very hard.
What would you say was the hardest thing? The isolation or trying to figure everything out on your own?
I think it was more so the isolation. Like, I'm very resourceful. I can usually figure things out on my own. I think it was the isolation, but also at the same time, feeling not myself. I felt, in a weird way, more disconnected from myself, but in a different way, more connected with myself. It was kind of like in this in-between. I wasn't sure who I was. I knew, like, when I became a mom, it's like something switched in me, and I knew that this is the most profound thing I will ever do in my life. I knew that. That was the one thing I was certain of. And it just put everything into perspective for me. It just made me feel like everything else that I was doing in my life, I was doing it for the wrong reasons. And as time passed, I felt more and more disconnected from my work, from my clothes, from the relationships that I had in my life, from so many things. And it was only until I had my son, and he was, I want to say, about 5 or 6 months old, that I found this book by Dr. Shefali. It's called A Radical Awakening. And I read it. And it's like something just like clicked. It's like, oh my God, this is why I am the way that I am. And this is why I've been feeling the way that I've been feeling. And it was a catalyst for everything, all the changes, all of the transitions, all the transformations that I've had in these last 2 years. This was the catalyst for it. Mm-hmm. So I feel like sometimes it takes something like a book or like meeting someone that will help you see through the thick of whatever phase of life you are going mm-hmm. through, any season of life you're going through, to make that realization and help you find your way back to yourself.
Yeah, to make that leap. Because I think what happens a lot of times, and that's something that I've realized through a lot of conversations with other mothers, is that the change is instant. You have a baby and yeah. you're not your previous self anymore. So that's evident. The problem is that we don't always instantly accept it. For the most part, we never instantly accept it. So it takes a long time to detach from that previous version of herself. As you mentioned, the way you were, the way you dressed, what you did for work, all of these things, they are a previous version of you in a way. And then we have to leap into this new version that we don't really know yet fully. And I think that's the scariest transition, and that's when you need that little nudge. So I want to talk more about that, because I know that there's been so much change happening in your life, from how you express yourself creatively and what you've been sharing more and more. Like, I see how you're becoming this different person, and a lot of other women who've been following you, like myself, I think they're going through similar change, because a lot of them probably having kids. So we're all going through our own evolution together. Yeah. But I want to talk about your personal experience and journey, and where did it take you? And how did you get there?
So it's funny that you're saying that you're watching me evolve into a different person. What you don't realize is that I'm coming back to who I've always been. Since I was a little girl, I've always been an artist. My entire life, I've been an artist. I've been designing, sketching. I was making clothes out of my grandma's old pillowcases, just sewing everything by hand. These are all skills and tools that I've accumulated over my entire childhood, but again, my entire life. Back to my parents, who I love so dearly, they told me, it's amazing that you're talented at this and you love art so much, but realistically, where is it going to get you? You need to get a good job, you need to go to university, you need to become either a doctor or a lawyer or something respectable, And I didn't realize until later in life that it wasn't even about being something or someone respectable. It was about fulfilling this desire that my parents had for themselves.
Yeah.
This appearance facade that they wanted for themselves so they could, have bragging rights, right? So now that I'm a mom and I made this realization and I see these exact same skills in my daughter, I'm fostering them. I want her to follow her heart. She's very inquisitive. Like, we had a conversation a few weeks ago in the car and I was driving her to school and she's like, Mama, my teacher asked me the other day what I want to be when I grow up, but I don't know. And I'm like, this is an opportunity to teach her something. I'm like, I didn't know what I wanted to be for a long time either. You don't have to decide right now. She's like, I don't? I'm like, no. And I said, you don't even have to be one thing. You can be multiple things. You can be anything you want. I said, the most important thing is that you follow your heart. So when I told her that, she had the biggest smile because the world is her oyster. I never felt that way. I always felt boxed in. I always felt like I had this expectation to be someone who I didn't want to be. And I feel like that led me to do a lot of things that I'm not proud of, like dropping out of university and hiding it from my parents. So many things that I could name, but at the end of the day, I just want her to be honest with herself, and I want her to really live her life in alignment with her own dreams and her own desires. And my job is just to be her
biggest cheerleader.
Exactly.
Supporter.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's amazing how much positive reinforcement can do, because I observe my daughter really come out of her shell and become this totally different personality. She was quite shy when she was younger, about 2 years, and now she's 4.5, and she's a totally different kid because my husband and I, we intentionally really try to foster her curiosity, her passion. She loves to climb. She's one of these really small kids that climbs really high, and instead of being like, oh no, you're gonna fall, you're gonna break something, get down, it's dangerous, I just stand there and I'm like, you're doing great. And she's like, Mommy, but what if I fall? I say, I'm here, I'll catch you. And so she knows, and it's in everything. I'm here, I'll catch you. Go do what you want to do. And I think that's what we haven't really experienced in our childhood. And by we, I mean our generation in general. Not because our parents didn't want to do best for us. It's because they didn't know any better. And it was a very different time. And I absolutely love what you said about coming back to yourself versus evolving into a new person. And I got to be honest, it brought tears into my eyes and that gave me goosebumps, because I started thinking to myself back to how I was as a kid, and what I'm doing now. It's exactly what I wanted to do when I was a kid. I was an artist. I wanted to be a movie director, a writer, and an actress. I wanted to be in talking shows. I would talk to myself all the time. And look at me now.
I can see that.
I'm doing this because it's an expression of me, the real me.
Yes.
So I really appreciate you bringing this wisdom out, because it truly changed my perspective as well. I love it.
Yeah. And it really makes you think about a lot of things in our society, like school, an institution where every child, even though every child has their own unique traits and talents and skills that they're good at, all of those things are suppressed. You're taught the same thing, the same curriculum. You have to get good grades in everything, otherwise you're not going to get into the best schools. But we're training our kids to be good at following instructions and learning through books. But we're suppressing the other things in them that make them unique in their own way. The creativity, the resourcefulness, the hands-on experience. I would rather my child get C's in everything, but be extraordinary in the one thing that lights that fire within them that is going to allow them to live their best life.
Yeah. It's funny, I remember growing up, all of my classmates, myself included, if we struggled in any particular subject, that's what we would get like a personal tutoring in, right? So like if you struggle in math, they get you a tutor.
Yeah.
And then now they say, well, let them struggle. Look at what they do best and get them a tutor there. If they dance very well, if they sing very well, I dance, I was like in all the arts you can ever imagine, performative arts. And that was never nurtured because, well, you're good at it anyways. You know, I could do splits without any training because I was like, ta-da! I used to like dress up in my grandmother's, like whatever I could find in her closet and do these skits. And nobody thought of nurturing that because, well, like, you're already good at that. You know where I went? To math and physics school. Me and like my husband now, when I tell him that I was an A student, A grade student at a math school, he's like, no. Like, you're shitting me, because I'm horrible at like, but I hate numbers. He is the numbers guy in our family. But what I'm saying is, isn't that crooked? Yeah. How like we grew up and we nurtured things that are not naturally there. Then like, why? Yeah. So I want to know more about what it is that you do differently with your kids to make sure that you nurture those sides of them. And maybe you could have some, you know, practical examples that other mothers could learn from.
I don't know how practical it is. I don't feel like I'm like a, you know, an expert in parenting. I honestly, I believe in leading and listening to my intuition. So I'm very observant of my kids, and I really take the time to understand their interests and help develop those skills. My son is only 3, so right now he has an obsession with cars, vehicles, and building blocks. So there's not much for me yet to foster. I feel like that comes a little bit later. And again, every child develops differently and shows interest in different things. With my daughter, from a very young age, it was so obvious to me that she was so artistic. Like she could sit for hours just like creating like these beautiful pictures and drawings, and she loves jewelry making, which is funny because I one of my first businesses was a jewelry business. But she was always so incredible with her hands. And I know that's her gift. And I think what helps me is because I see myself in her, right? So for me, it's very obvious that that's her thing. And now it's just a matter of just helping her develop that skill. So she's doing art classes now, and every week she's like learning different mediums and learning how to work with different tools and everything. And she loves it. Like before that, my mom, again, like the Slavic, babushka, she's like, oh, you have to sign her up for singing and dancing and all of these things. I'm like, I want her to tell me what she wants. And there's been many times where she says, oh, Mom, I want to try ballet. I want to try gymnastics. I'm like, sure, wonderful. Let's try it out. And she'll try it for like 3-4 classes. And she'll say, you know what? It's not really for me. And my parents, I don't know about you, once I start something, it doesn't matter if I like it or if I don't like it. It's like,
you got to do it.
You got to do it. And I'm like screaming from the rooftop, but I don't like it. Doesn't matter. You started, you have to finish.
Yeah.
I'm not like that with my kids. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I would never want to force them to do something that they don't feel like they're passionate about.
Because at the end of the day, they're going to get back to themselves. It's just going to take much longer if you box them into certain expectation / obligation.
Yes.
So maybe it is a smarter way of just getting them to where they need to be sooner.
Exactly. I just think that a lot of parents, they have this perfect vision in their minds of how they want their children to behave, or like what they want them to be when they grow up. But you need to remember that, yes, you brought life into this world, but this person, this little person, is their own person.
Yeah.
They're going to have different needs, different wants, different desires. It's not fair to them for you to unload your dreams and desires onto them.
You don't own them.
You don't own them.
No.
You own yourself. Great, you have these dreams and desires, you go get them.
And you set a good example by doing that.
Exactly.
So talking about dreams and coming back to yourself, I want to now talk a little more about your third baby, because I know that you recently had an addition to your family
Yes.
in terms of business. So I want to talk about Ari Blake. And I assume that's your daughter's name and middle name?
Yeah,
I love that.
my daughter's name is Ariella. Her middle name is Blake. And I wanted like a gender neutral name that was very sentimental and just, is the foundation for this entire brand and the vision and the mission that I have for it. So it has a lot of meaning to me.
So tell me how that came about. How did you decide? Because obviously you had a lot of successful businesses that you sold. You have a pretty successful YouTube
A lot of
channel.
unsuccessful ones too, by the way. Like, as an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
like we all see the highlight reel. We all see the successes. But in order to have those successes, you have to fail a million times. So I just want to clear that up.
I love
There's
that.
been a lot of failures.
Thank you for that disclaimer. So let's talk about Ari Blake and how did you come up with the idea and where are you at in creating that right now?
So Ari Blake, the whole idea for it came from the beginning stages of my motherhood journey with my daughter. As I mentioned, we were in the thick of COVID and I just felt so alone in that journey. But one of the things that brought me comfort was baby wearing. When I discovered baby wearing and the freedom and the connection and just like the feeling I would have carrying my baby, I baby wore every single day. Like I remember it was like the highlight of my day, getting my daughter all bundled up, because we would go rain, sun, like it didn't matter if it was snowing. We would go every single day for a walk outside, just in our neighborhood, so that we would keep our distance from everybody. But it just brought me so much joy and peace, and it became a ritual in our day. I would put her in the baby carrier, we would go for a walk, and you just like see the world from a different perspective, because like I would see like her eyes light up and like absorb all of these different stimuluses and things around her, and it just as a mother, it makes you appreciate things in a completely different way. So I was doing that every single day, and until she was about 1.5 years old. And I had this one baby carrier brand that I loved so much. And then that day we went for a walk, and we're walking. All of a sudden, I felt like one of the straps loosen, and I realized in that moment that somehow she had disengaged the buckle on that strap. And thankfully, there's other straps, and I was able to catch her. But in my mind, I'm like, how did this happen? So that was like a red flag that kind of went off in my mind in that moment. And I didn't, obviously it was a very terrifying moment for me as a mother. But it was only until later, maybe, I don't know, a few months passed, and I just started having this crazy idea of, designing my own baby carrier. Like, what would be the dream baby carrier that I would want for myself to make me feel comfortable as a parent? So I just started sketching a bunch of concepts, different prototypes, and like how I would want it to look, what kind of features I wanted to have, like the buckles, all of the things. And it was a sketch for a very, very long time. And then it wasn't until my son was born that I started researching like the best baby carriers on the market, the safest ones. And I found this one brand that like was highly recommended. I'm like, okay, this one seems promising. I'm going to try this one. And the buckles were like totally different. So I thought, it would be different. And he was a couple months old and we were baby wearing together. And I got home with him and he had like a rash on his belly. And I didn't put two and two together at that point. I thought it was, just maybe, I don't know, a reaction to maybe detergent. I had no idea until the next day it happened again. And then the rash was bigger and it was also on his cheek. And it happened that it was the cheek that was touching the fabric of the baby carrier. That's kind of how I realized, okay, like something doesn't add up here. And I went down a rabbit hole and I figured out that a lot of other parents were experiencing the same thing with their children in that particular brand. And then I dug even deeper and realized that this particular brand was using harsh chemicals to dye their fabrics. And the fabric itself was made of completely synthetic fabric. But this is like one of the top selling brands in the world. So I feel like that was kind of the push that I needed to turn my sketches into something tangible. So I started looking into like all of the logistics on how to like create a baby carrier. I started researching baby carrier manufacturers and buckles and all of the things. And because I've had experience doing like international business and sourcing different components from my other businesses, it just felt so natural to me. And it was something that was driven by an obsession and passion and something that I've never experienced before with my other businesses. Like with my other businesses, it was kind of like, okay, I see a gap in the market. I know that I can do this product better. So let me do that and then launch and just iterate as I go. And at that time, I still had my hair extension business, but I already knew in my mind that I wanted to sell. Like it wasn't fulfilling me in the way that it was fulfilling me before. It wasn't challenging me anymore. I just felt disconnected from it. I wasn't even wearing my products anymore. These transitions were kind of happening, like they were overlapping when I was like embarking on this new journey and also saying goodbye to my last company. And yeah, I just dove right in and started learning everything I needed to know about making the best baby carrier in the world. There's a lot of regulations, a lot of like legal things you need to go through, a lot of testing to make sure that it complies with all of the standards. So it was a very long and tedious process, but I wanted to make sure that it was perfect, that it was like the safest, most ergonomic, the most compliant baby carrier, and I wanted to make sure that it complied with all of the safety standards internationally, like not just for particular countries. So that was really important to me. But yeah, it's been quite a journey.
So with everything that you've experienced as it relates to motherhood, the loss, the challenges to conceive, going through that personal evolution, i.e. coming back to yourself, building a new business, what are some of the things and tools that you're using to stay grounded and to stay on the course?
A lot of the tools that I have, I feel like they're innate for me. They're ingrained in me. Like my discipline, my focus, those qualities I know that I've had from birth. And I see that in my kids as well. And I think that is so important to foster, because if you show your kids that discipline and focus are going to help you develop certain goals or dreams or whatever it may be, that alone can take you very far. Some of the skills and the tools that I've accumulated over my lifetime and continue to accumulate, they've come from the experiences that I've had. So every business failure or success, I always take something away from there, some kind of a lesson, some kind of a opportunity to learn and to grow from, and then I apply it to the next thing that I do. Even hobbies that I have, like recently I picked up tennis, and tennis, honestly, I don't know if you've ever played, but there's so much about to the game that really builds your mental resilience and discipline and focus in a way that nothing else does. And I feel like it's really helped me find my balance, not only in business, but in motherhood as well. So I just try to find little things that I feel really align with myself. I feel like one of the biggest takeaways and lessons for me in my lifetime is to do the things that align with me, the things that I want to do for me, not what my parents want for me, not what my husband wants for me, what I want for me. And if something doesn't feel right, or if something feels forced, I let it go. And I feel like that's really helped me stay focused in what I need to do. And I'm embracing the artist in me. Like, I have never felt so excited and so passionate about this vision that I have, and like where I see this brand going. I truly think that if anyone can disrupt this entire category, it's me. Like, I have the skills and the tools that I've accumulated through my entire life to do this work, and I know that I can make an impact, and I know that my story resonates with so many women, and those things together create like a passion and this deep desire inside of me to create something out of this world.
I'm so excited for what you're doing and for your business. And I think it's not an easy path, because obviously it's a very hard product to make.
Yeah.
And you mentioned all the regulations and all the hoops you had to jump through in order to make it happen. I know that the first iteration has been out and has been quite successful, because I've seen it on some people that I follow. Like, I think there's Annie Jeffrey, like there's a few women that have kids and families in the online space, creators that use your product and rave about it. So I'm grateful that you're doing this. I think it's great. And honestly, I can sit here forever and talk to you and chat about all of these things. But I do want to kind of bring it all together and close our conversation with some words of wisdom to yourself, because with everything that you've been through and everything that you've learned through that experience, I want to know, what would you tell yourself back then? Maybe that Niki that was sitting in the car crying about, her journey and her struggles at that time.
I wish I trusted myself more. I wish from day one I followed my intuition, because when I look back at my life, there's been so many times my intuition was telling me one thing, and then, my mom would say, no, you have to do this, or my husband would say, no, you have to do that, or someone would say, you can't do that. And I would say, oh, okay, maybe they're right. One thing I have learned is that fear is one of the things that is going to hold you back the most in life. And there's always going to be people who are going to try to enhance those fears that you have in your mind, because what I realize now is that they're self-projecting. They don't believe that, they can do the thing, or whatever it is that is stopping you from going after it. I learned that when you learn to lean into fear and you take it as a sign to go after that thing, as long as it's not life-threatening or anything, there's so much growth and opportunity on the other side. So I wish I followed my intuition more and I trusted myself more. And that's something that I've really been leaning into in the past couple of years. And I kid you not, 95% of the time when I follow my intuition, it's right. It's right on the head. And I've really been learning to dial that in more and more. And the more you do it, the more you realize you're right about certain things. You become more confident in yourself. And if someone starts yapping something in your ear, you're like, thank you, but I got
already
it.
know.
I got it.
Yeah. I love this because I think women have such a superpower.
Yeah.
And somehow we've been conditioned that we have to compete with men and try to be equal. It's all about balance. Men have their own strengths.
Yes.
Let them do their own thing. Like we have our own. And I think one of the biggest superpowers we have is that innate knowing. Like it's already all in us, because I can like so relate to what you're saying, because you already know what you have to do. You already know what you want to do. It's just sometimes you think that you're wrong, and you think that you're wrong because you have the people, you have the social pressures, you have the certain like image and facade to maintain. There's so many things that kind of try to silence the voice, but the voice is there. And I think this is a very powerful advice for women specifically, because we do have that extraordinary power of knowing, and our bodies just tell us what to do. Thank you so much. Thank you for being so honest and open and vulnerable and full of wisdom. I honestly got to say, this is one of my favorite conversations on this podcast so far.
This is my first podcast.
Yeah, congrats.
Thank you.
And I'm very excited about what you're doing, and excited to continue watching your journey. And I consider that, I'm part of it because I've been following you for a while. And now that I know you, on a more personal level, I'd be even more interested to see where this journey takes you. And I wish you all the success with Ari Blake. And with that, I would like to see if we could maybe offer a discount code to some of my listeners.
Do you want me to show you a sneak peek of the new collection?
Oh, yes, please. Let's do this.
You're the first person outside of my family and friends who's seeing this.
Oh my goodness. So, okay.
It's got all the bells and whistles.
It's got all the things that you need. Yeah. I'm just looking. Hold on. Can I zoom in?
Yeah, of course.
This makes me want to have another baby.
Thank you.
This is amazing.
That's a compliment.
But isn't it incredible how we talked about the journey of, you going into things that you might not be proud of, and doing things that, failed, and maybe you had to do things that were forced by your parents onto you. But at the same time, all of that led you to this.
Exactly.
You needed those experiences
100%
to get to here.
Yes.
And sometimes I wonder, I'm like, if things were different, would I be where I am now?
Exactly.
If I didn't have those insecurities or those kind of projections.
100%. It's funny that you mention that, because I like to look at life as a ripple effect. Everything that happens in your life is for a reason. Even everything that led up to you being here on this earth happened for a reason. Your parents immigrating, or you immigrating, or things come together for a specific reason. So that's why I think trusting the process and just letting things unfold as they're meant to unfold is so, so important. Because if I didn't have those experiences, you're right, this would not be here.
And it's beautiful. I'm so excited. Well, what's the discount code that our listeners can use to get a discount for your amazing product?
We can do ItMom10 for 10%.
Love it.
Does that work?
Okay. I will put it in the description under the episode, so if anyone needs to check it out, please do, and then I'll put your website and all of your contact. And where can they find you if they want to be part of your journey as well?
Thank you so much. So our website is shopariblake.com. The Ari Blake Instagram account is just Ari Blake Official. And my personal account it's Niki Sky. I share, motherhood moments and life lessons over there. And I'd just be honored to have anyone, join my community who resonates with that kind of content.
And you also have a YouTube channel.
I do have a YouTube channel. Yeah, that I have been transitioning because, when I started that channel over 10 years ago, it started as like a fashion beauty channel. But since I've been going through this motherhood journey and everything, I am shifting my content into more of like empowering women and helping women achieve their greatest potential in many different areas of life, in business and motherhood, even looking and feeling their best. So my YouTube channel, I feel, is more of like my act of service to like give back to this community.
Well, on this note, I want to wrap up this episode. I really hope that it resonated with some of you. And if it did, please join my community at ItMom Club on Instagram or my personal account, Paulina Perry. And also, please subscribe to this podcast and leave your comments and thoughts under the episode. And I can't wait to share more episodes with you.